My fiancé said, "I invited my ex to the wedding. If you love me, you'll accept it?" I smiled and said, "All right." Then I quietly invited his wife, and what happened next ended everything. I should have known something was off the moment Jessica sat across from me at that tiny Italian place, twirling her fork like she was rehearsing a speech in her head instead of eating. We'd been engaged 8 months, together 3 years, and I'd been stupid enough to think we were in the building a life together phase, not the "I'm about to set your entire world on fire" phase. The waiter hadn't even filled our water glasses when she casually dropped a bomb that cracked the quiet hum of the restaurant straight down the middle. So, I invited Trevor to the wedding. For a second, I thought she meant some coworker I'd forgotten the name of or a cousin I'd never met. But then it hit me like a truck. Trevor, her ex, the college sweetheart she'd dated for 4 years, lived with for 1, almost married until they grew apart. A phrase I'd come to realize meant he still had a key to parts of her heart I didn't know existed. I almost choked on my pasta. "You invited your ex to our wedding?" She didn't flinch. She didn't blush. She didn't even look guilty. She just tilted her head like she was explaining something obvious to a toddler. "Yeah, it would be weird not to invite him. We're still friends." Friends. Right. Friends don't leave footprints in your relationship big enough for me to trip over. Friends don't show up in your stories as, "Oh, we just ran into each other and grabbed coffee." Totally random. Friends don't text inside jokes that don't die even after the breakup does. But I kept my voice calm. "Jess, that's unusual." Her face changed instantly, like someone flipped a switch behind her eyes. The softness vanished. The defensiveness rose. "If you loved me, you'd understand. It shows maturity that we can all be adults about this." Adults? She wanted her ex watching her walk down the aisle toward me like he was some guest of honor instead of a chapter that should have been closed years ago. "You want your ex at our wedding?" I asked again, slower this time because maybe she didn't hear how insane that sounded. She scoffed. "God, you're being insecure." I felt the air shift between us. Insecure. The word people use when they don't want to admit their actions are disrespectful. "He's happily married now," she added. "His wife couldn't make it because she's visiting family overseas, but he'll be there." Overseas. Too quick. Too rehearsed. It slid out of her mouth too easily. "What's her name?" I asked casually, pretending I didn't already feel my instincts screaming like a fire alarm. Jessica blinked. Rebecca." My heart didn't move, but my brain did. Something was wrong. The way her eyes darted, the slight pause, the over-explanation. "Why does it matter?" she added quickly. "You've met her." "Right," I said, smiling, even though something icy slid between my ribs. "Of course." She breathed out, relieved, like she'd passed a test she didn't know she was taking. "See? This is why I love you," she said, leaning in and kissing my cheek. But I wasn't listening. That one lie, that one tiny detail, sat in my chest like a rock. That night, when she fell asleep early after pouring herself 2 glasses of wine and muttering about centerpiece designs, I grabbed my laptop and typed in Trevor's name. Found him immediately. And his wife's name wasn't Rebecca. It was Monica. And she wasn't overseas. She'd posted a photo that morning from a dental office 20 minutes from our wedding venue. So Jessica didn't just lie. She lied confidently. Comfortably? Like she'd done it before. My stomach twisted, but I needed more than suspicion. I needed truth. And truth arrived faster than I expected, because Jessica's iPad was sitting on my couch when I got home from work the next day. Unlocked. Synced to her messages. I know. Privacy violation. I know what people will say. But when your fiancée lies straight to your face about her ex's spouse on the same night she invites him to your wedding, you stop playing nice and start protecting yourself? The messages were there. Hundreds of them. Not flirty enough to be called cheating, but emotional enough to feel like betrayal. "Remember that weekend in wine country?" he wrote. 2 months ago. "Best 48 hours ever," she replied. 2 weeks before, she told me she loved me more than anyone she'd ever dated. My throat tightened. It felt like reading a book written in a language you didn't know your partner spoke, page after page, late-night messages, nostalgic jokes. "Shame it didn't work out between us," he wrote once. "Timing is everything," she responded. My heart didn't shatter. It just froze, because suddenly everything made sense. The hesitation when I brought up wedding vows, the way she'd asked if we could keep things flexible on seating arrangements, how she always lit up a little too brightly when someone mentioned college memories. I closed the iPad slowly, like it was something radioactive, and sat there in my dark living room, realizing I was engaged to a woman who wasn't sure she wanted me. Not fully. Not completely. Not in the way marriage requires. And that's when I made the decision. Quiet, clean, surgical. If she wanted Trevor at the wedding, then his wife deserved a front row seat, too. Out of respect, out of fairness, out of poetic justice. I found Monica on social media easily. Sent her a message from my real account. No hiding, no anonymity. "Hi, Monica. You don't know me, but I'm engaged to Jessica. She invited Trevor to our wedding and told me you couldn't attend because you're overseas. I'd like to extend a personal invitation for you to join us as my guest." The reply came within an hour. "Overseas? That's strange. I'm at work right now. Trevor told me he had a conference that weekend. Thank you for reaching out. I'll definitely be attending." And just like that, the fuse was lit. And the rehearsal dinner. That would become the explosion everyone would remember for years. The rehearsal dinner wasn't supposed to feel like a battlefield. But the second Monica stepped into that room behind me, every molecule of air shifted like the universe knew something catastrophic was about to unfold. I walked in first, acting like nothing was unusual, but the tension crawling up my spine told me Jessica was already watching the door, waiting for me, ready to flash that bright, perfect smile she used to pull me back into her orbit. She stood when she saw me, lifting her wine glass like she was about to toast my belated entrance. Until Monica stepped from behind me into the warm light of the private dining room. Every fork paused midair. Glasses froze on lips. Someone dropped a napkin. And Trevor, dear God, Trevor, went sheet white in less than a second. He looked like a man who'd suddenly been handed his own obituary and told to read it silently. "Hi, honey," Monica said sweetly, brushing past me, eyes locked on him. "Surprise. My trip got canceled." Trevor's jaw didn't just drop. It unhinged. Jessica's smile didn't just fade. It died an immediate and painful death. Her eyes shot to me like she was trying to read a confession written on my forehead. "Monica, I thought you were overseas," she stammered. The lie sounded even uglier now that it was naked in front of everyone. Monica raised a brow. "Overseas? Interesting, since I'm sitting in my office every day this week. But hey, husbands lie, right? Who knows what stories Trevor told you?" People shifted in their chairs like spectators at a live-action car crash they couldn't look away from. I stepped forward calmly, sliding my hands into my pockets like I hadn't just detonated a truth bomb in the middle of a rehearsal dinner. "Everyone," I said, "this is Monica, Trevor's wife. Since Jessica insisted Trevor be such a big part of our wedding weekend, I thought it would only be fair to invite his wife. You know, balance." My mom, God bless her, immediately connected the dots, stood, and offered Monica her seat like she'd been waiting her whole life for this moment. Jessica finally found her voice. Shaky, thin, breaking at the edges. Drew, can we talk? Not quietly, not privately, not respectfully. No, she wanted to talk now, because the reality she'd planned so carefully was collapsing right in front of her. But before she could take a step toward me, Monica sat down gracefully across from her, folded her napkin in her lap, and said, Actually, Jessica, we should talk. Woman to woman. You could hear a pin drop. Jessica's dad frowned in confusion. Her mom clutched her pearls, actual pearls, because of course she wore them to a rehearsal dinner. And Trevor? He tried to stand like some tragic hero who could maybe stop the bleeding. Monica, please, not here. Monica didn't even look at him. Sit down, Trevor. He sat, hard, the kind of sit that comes from fear, not obedience. Jessica tried to laugh it off, a weak, nervous laugh that cracked in the middle. We're all adults here. Let's not turn this into something dramatic. Dramatic? Monica tilted her head. You lied about me being overseas. You've been texting my husband at midnight. He has shirtless pictures saved from you. Do you want me to keep going? Or should I pull out the screenshots? Silverware dropped. Someone exhaled so loudly, you'd think they'd been holding their breath for a full minute. Jessica looked at me like she wanted ground beneath her to crack open so she could escape through it. Drew, she's lying. But are you? I asked quietly. That quietness hit harder than a shout. Should I read them the messages? It's bad luck for the groom to see the dress, but not for you. That's your line, right? Or maybe the one where he told you he missed you, and you said, Sometimes I wonder what life would look like if things were different. Jessica's dad slammed his hand on the table. Jessica, what is this? Jessica's voice snapped like fragile glass. Everyone just calm down. It wasn't like that. We were just reconnecting. Monica laughed, soft and sharp at the same time. Reconnecting? You were planning to see how you felt at the wedding. He told you he'd object during the ceremony if you gave him a sign. And your response? Let me see how I feel in the moment. The gasp that went around the table was almost theatrical. Jessica whipped around toward me with tears welling up. Drew, I swear I wasn't going to go through with anything. I needed closure. At our wedding? I asked. In front of our families? During our vows? Tears spilled now, but they didn't change the math. They didn't erase the messages. They didn't undo the fact that she'd brought another man into our future, like she wasn't sure which direction she wanted her life to branch into. Her sister Emma broke her silence. Jess, what the hell is wrong with you? And that hit harder than anything else, because Jessica always believed Emma idolized her. You had a good man, Emma continued, and you threw him away for someone who cheats on his wife. You're embarrassing. Jessica's mother tried to intervene, but even she couldn't piece together an explanation that wouldn't make things worse. Meanwhile, in the middle of this chaos, Trevor stood abruptly like he was about to deliver a monologue. Monica, can we leave? Please. Monica didn't raise her voice, didn't curse, didn't tremble. You can leave, Trevor. I'm staying. I'd like to finish my dinner. The salmon is delicious. My mom raised her glass. To honesty in relationships. Half the room clinked glasses. The other half stared at their plates and contemplated the collapse of Jessica's dignity. Jessica finally broke. Full sobs, shoulders shaking, hands covering her face. I didn't feel satisfaction. I didn't feel pity. I felt clarity. Pure solid clarity. She looked up at me through smeared mascara. Drew, please. I choose you. I choose us. No, I said quietly. You're choosing me because you got caught. She moved toward me like she wanted to grab my hands. I stepped back. "Don't," I said. "Just don't." Monica gently placed her napkin down, stood, and walked over to me. "Thank you," she whispered, "for telling me, for not letting him keep me in the dark." "You deserve the truth," I said. "So did you," she replied, nodding toward Jessica. And that was the part that hit me hardest, because she was right. Jessica hadn't lied to protect me. Jessica had lied to protect the emotional safety net she'd kept hidden behind her back. A just-in-case, a backup plan, and she would have walked down the aisle with me while still holding that thread between her fingers. I turned toward her father. "The wedding's off." He nodded slowly, eyes filled with disappointment. Not at me, but at her. Her mother covered her face. Her sister exhaled in relief, like she'd been waiting for someone to stop the inevitable train wreck. Jessica reached for me again. "Please don't do this. We can fix it." "You don't fix a heart you weren't planning to keep," I said. And I walked out, past the tables, past the shock, past her sobbing, with Monica right behind me, not because we were aligned in some revenge fantasy, but because both of us had survived the same lie. And the moment the door closed behind us, it felt like oxygen hit my lungs for the first time in months.